Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in a shop, but this is going to be a pretty quick video. So let's go ahead and jump on a plane to England. As you can see on the screen, we flew from Charlotte to London. Thankfully, we caught a direct flight, but this is kind of the beginning of our woes on this trip because I actually lost my wallet sometime during this flight, and it ended up being on American Airlines on a flight back to Boston is where they found it, but someone had taken all of my cash. And I had a couple £100 of English money and some American money as well. So that's the beginning of the bad stuff. The first stop we went to was the castle from Downton Abbey. I don't remember the real name of it, but it was a pretty cool place. They don't really allow you to take pictures inside, so don't expect anything from inside. But a lot of these sets that you thought might have been a Hollywood studio or an English studio was actually filmed in rooms out of that castle, so that was kind of a cool experience. The second stop that we did was the Top Gear test track, and that's, I believe, the Dunsfold Aerodrome. That sounds about right. And we went to the Everyman Racing experience, and I actually rented two cars. So the first car that I rented was an Audi R8 V10 Plus. This was all-wheel drive, and this car handled pretty well. Obviously not as powerful as my Corvette, but it did handle the power that it made. I think 500 or 600 horsepower very well. The second car that I had, I believe it was an Aston Martin DB11. It was older, and how do we put this nicely? Let's just say it was a well-used track vehicle, and honestly, it felt pretty slow compared to anything that I've driven back home, and especially the Supercharged SS. After we were done at the Top Gear test track, we headed out to Diddley Squat Farm. You guys might recognize that from Jeremy Clarkson. That's his farm on Amazon, and I believe they just call it Clarkson's Farm. They're season 3. I had some of their Hawkstone beer, and if you see this one picture, there were like 200 plus people waiting in line before in front of us, and we got there probably 2-3 hours before they closed. And luckily, I don't think they cut anyone off, but by the time we got there, we couldn't get any food, but we could get beer. So I got some beer, and my better half stood in line for the store, and we did eventually end up going through the little shop store that they have. Also waiting in line, I actually noticed a VE Commodore over from Australia, a Holden car, and the Brits got the Vauxhall VXR8. I had to make sure I said that right. I actually joined a local forum in England to see if I could, post some pictures of the guy's car. It was a cam. It sounded like an LS3, probably a 6-liter or 6.2 liter. I'm not sure which motor was in that. And no one's car. I joined the forum, posted pictures. It was no one's car, but I think there was a Walkinshaw engineering shop not too far from there. And here you're going to see a giant Sequoia and then some Krispy Kreme. So we got a couple of American experiences over in England. And the giant Sequoia, that's obviously native from California, that had planted at this place like 150 plus years ago. Then we headed up to the Lake District, and guys, their Lake District is kind of just like Sedona. I had a not great experience there. Just a ton of people, can't find any parking, and just too many people in a small space. So Lake District was crazy. It was a holiday weekend, I believe. So pretty much everywhere we stopped or tried to stop, ton of people, you know, so if you're not into crowds, don't go there on a busy weekend. But if you can go in the middle of the week, I think the Lake District would actually be very nice. We then headed up to Scotland, and once we hit the border, we will quote the Grand Tour. We piloted extremely nicely in Scotland for like 1,000+ miles. One of the first stops that we stopped at in Scotland was where they filmed Skyfall. Apparently they filmed Braveheart there as well. I believe it's called Glen Etive, E-T-I-V-E. We then drove and managed to see the Harry Potter train. I'll be honest, I haven't seen those movies in like 20 years, so I guess it was in the first movie maybe. But yeah, you're able to catch that from the valley, either above or behind it. We caught it from behind it. So in this shot, we did happen to see the train go past us. Then we headed up to the ferry pools. I was still kind of ill, so I wasn't feeling too great, but I think we did manage to do like a 2 or 2.5 mile hike, something like that. And that was the beginning of the rest of our woes for the trip, and this was where our car trouble started. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of electrical faults on the car. So what happened was I hit a bump, and then, like I said, the engine died, but everything on the interior stayed on. Like the radio, the gauge cluster, all that stuff would not turn off. And finally, we just left the car in that mode and ended up getting towed. Take a bus to our next town, which was Fort William, and we ended up taking a 3-hour bus ride and not having a car. So we had to stuff all of our stuff into 2 suitcases and our 2 carry-ons. And then the next video and set of pictures is from Castle Stalker. That is where our second car died. Well, it technically didn't die. The transmission broke and it was stuck in third. So that second car that we had, we managed to drive it a whole whopping 30 miles and maybe like 30 minutes. Like, we went to one place and then that car had issues as well. 1 through 5. Neutral. 2 through 6. Yeah, that ain't right. Well, here we are driving around Scotland with no gearbox. This is not connected down to what gear we're in. We are stuck in third, and this thing doesn't do anything. So now we're on car number 3 of this trip. It was a Ford Fiesta. We actually didn't have any problems with this one, but this one took another half day, multiple hours to get, and yeah, so this was another ruined day of our trip, and yeah, thankfully it was the last car issue that we had, and we headed up to Loch Ness and, you know, Nessy and all that, and we did end up doing a boat tour. Then after the boat tour, we went to the Battle of Culloden. This is a war grave, so, you know, just kind of be respectful, but this is where the Highlanders and the Bonnie Prince Charlie rose up against the English crown. It was in 1746. It was featured in the show Outlander, if you've been watching that. So after Culloden, we headed back to England, and we went to a couple more castles. First one you're going to see here is the Donaghtar Castle. That was on the coast. That was actually really cool. Ruins were in pretty good shape, and just really cool views of, you know, castle that's out on the coast on a ledge, and you're seeing right into the ocean. Then the second castle you're going to see here is the Elnwick Castle, and I believe some Harry Potter stuff was filmed there, and there is an Earl that lives there, but I have forgotten what his position was. But yeah, so really huge place, and definitely you could tell that they use that as a revenue, you know, they do tours to keep that place up just because it's so huge. After the two castles, we headed back to London. We turned in our car at Enterprise. Didn't get too much hassle there, but yeah, that whole 3 cars in 2 days was pretty bad. And we headed to the British Museum, and that was kind of cool. But honestly, guys, it was an like 40-minute train ride there. We got there at 4 o'clock. They closed at 5, and we flew home the next morning. So almost wasn't worth it, but we did get to see the Rosetta Stone, even very briefly. And after that, we caught some Five Guys because we were really sick of British pub food, and had very expensive, overpriced burgers, but hey, they tasted like home. Then after that, we went to a rooftop bar on top of our hotel which was at London Heathrow. I forgot the name of it. It literally might be called like Rooftop Bar, and we saw some planes coming and going. Alright guys, as you can see, we are home, and we had a lot of woes with this trip, and that was 2 broken cars in 24 hours. I lost my wallet, got all my cash stolen, but they left my credit cards and ID in it, so I don't know why they would have bothered. They should have just taken the cards and, you know, chucked it, but whatever. So been dealing with that, getting new IDs and stuff, even though I already had it. So new credit cards and whatnot, so that's fun. And the last item that we ran into was lost baggage. When we landed in Charlotte, my better half's luggage never made it on the plane. It was stuck in London. And then what was even better, when we were on this trip, we were coming back right before Hurricane Debbie was going to be hitting, you know, the Florida. I think it was already hitting Florida, but it was about to hit North Carolina like 3 days later. So we ended up waiting in the check the luggage line for 3 hours after we landed, just to go report that our bag was missing and all that. So yeah, fun times of landing and then having to wait 2.5, almost 3 hours to get just in line, just to report that that luggage was missing. Fast forward 8 days, and finally her luggage made it onto a plane back from London to Charlotte, you know, because there are 3 flights daily out of Charlotte to London and back and whatnot. And yeah, so finally, over a week later, her bag got dropped off, and thankfully everything was in it. So overall, it was a good trip, but man, this is one of the hardest trips that we've ever had, dealing with issues, being ill, losing luggage, losing wallets, broken cars. You know, there were a lot of negatives to the trip, but when you're on your 3rd car in 2 days, you know, kind of at that point, you're just, you just got to go with the flow. You know, you can't worry about it because there's nothing you can really do about it. And thankfully, we were able to get back on the road within, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours each time. And we did have to take a bus one time. So that was actually really inconvenient. But, you know, it is what it is. And we were able to get on the road and finish the rest of our trip. I will say this. I'm glad everything went well the first half of the trip. Everything in England, everything with the racing, with the cars, the Audi, all that stuff went fine. You know, going to Diddley Squat Farm, that was cool. But you know, just it's like once we hit that Scottish border, it's like you know, everything just got worse. I was feeling more ill, you know, had my lost wallet, and then the car issues happened, and it is what it is. So, but yeah, would I recommend going to England and Scotland? Yes. Would I recommend doing what we did? No. It is what it is, and you got to take the good with the bad. That's kind of how you have to look at it. So that's gonna be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more content like this, you know, we'll go back to the truck, the Corvette, the shop. We have a ton of truck videos coming next week. So we've already shot a bunch of them, but, you know, we've got a lot of good truck stuff coming up over the next month or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. So if you guys want to see those videos, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. If you guys want to help support the channel, check out basically our website. I don't have any links to drop for today. Check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any support you can give there goes right back into the channel. These trips, the shop, the Corvette, and the truck, and all that. So that's gonna be it. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.